Hi, this is David Nail,
Hi, this is Cliff Burgess.
and this is the MNM Theatre Company Podcast.
Today we'll be talking to Paul Reekie.
Musical director for Man of La Mancha, and a funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
Wow, both of them.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the toll it takes on his body playing so much piano.
I mean, he must play a lot of piano.
He plays a lot of piano.
Yeah.
We're also going to get into a little bit of the nerves that go into performing, and specifically at auditions.
Pain, nerves, what can go wrong?
Here it is, this week's episode, Paul Reekie.
My name is Paul Reekie. I've been the music director for 10 out of 12 of M&M's productions, and I met Marcy. Actually, I was conducting a show at Dreyfus. They were doing Legally Blonde, and Bruce had been involved in that. He was at Dreyfus then, and so I met her first then, and then I guess it was a couple of years later then that she was interested in bringing me on to music direct The Course Line.
And where are you from?
Where am I from?
Yeah.
I was born in Argentina. My parents were living in New York at the time, and so I actually lived in New York for 4 years. And then we moved to London, England for 3 years, which is where I started to take piano lessons. And then we moved to the Detroit area, Detroit, Michigan. So then I basically grew up most of my life there.
You grew up in Detroit.
Outside of Detroit, the suburbs of Detroit.
Oh. Outside, but inside probably a good portion of the time, which probably lent to a lot of piano practice time.
I hated practicing. Detroit. The Detroit area gets a bad rap. It really actually is a wonderful place to grow up. The suburbs, and it was great.
So you hate practicing. Does that continue over till today? Would you rather be playing a show?
I would rather be playing than practicing. I never was. I knew some other kids growing up that I would do recitals with and that type of thing, and they'd be inside practicing 3 or 4 hours a day, and I might have practiced 3 or 4 hours a week. So. Well, one of my jobs as a music director is to make sure that whole process goes smoothly for everybody. So of course, hiring the right players for the show. Having worked as a music director for several years down here in South Florida, I've met a lot of musicians, and so I always try and work with the ones that I know and trust, that are not just good musicians, but also know how to give and take with vocalists, because classical players are a very different type of player than a jazz player, as a musical theater player, and so we usually try and have one rehearsal with just the band. So that we can do all the cuts and they know what's coming, and I can give them some guidelines as to what the cast is going to be doing, and then they meet the cast obviously after that, and we have 3 rehearsals before the show opens. Most of the shows I do, I can't see the cast, so I know myself, I've just kind of gotten used to just doing everything by ear. Occasionally I might need to look for one particular cue or something like that. So I'm used to that, and I think the musicians that I work with are also in tune that way. Also, I know that during the sound checks, a lot of times in rehearsal, the band members will say, "We can't hear enough of the cast. We want more of the voices." And even though they're supposed to be following me as a conductor, they're still connecting with the cast themselves.
Yeah, I love live music. One of my favorite things to do is watch like a jam band or like a blues band, and the way they communicate by looks and nods and smiles and things like that. It's this sign language that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and it's such a connected art form. If actors could connect the way musicians do, because musicians have to be on the same page.
Right, and make split-second decisions and do it all together.
In a wink, a nod.
Yep.
If an actor goes to a different part of the song, it's one of those. There's such a thrill being backstage when something goes slightly askew, and everybody's head tilts, and the band has to do the same thing.
Right.
And ultimately, it's on you to get everything on track from the beginning to the end.
And again, I credit the musicians that I get to work with. I mean, you do a show like like Spam-A-Lot that we did a few years ago. And there's every night was different, right? The jokes are different, the audience reacts differently, and so we all had to move together, and they did it flawlessly.
Yeah. And a lot of people might not know that you're the musical director, so you're teaching or coaching the vocalist, you're putting together the band, but you pull double duty, and you're not the guy with the baton, you're actually in there playing.
I'm actually playing, yeah. I play for every show, so most of my conducting is with my head. A lot of people don't realize, people think music directors sometimes just deal with the band. But yeah, I'm there with the cast pretty much for the entirety of rehearsals, working with them on teaching them the music, and then also working with the director on making sure the music supports what the story is supposed to be telling. The feel of the audience, the feel of the show each night or each performance is a little bit different, and obviously having a live band, we can react to those changes. With a track, you've got to do it exactly the same way. You can't take an extra moment to breathe or things like that. Then secondly, I mean, just the sound. I mean, yes, I've been to some shows that use tracks, and I think for some theaters that are smaller that might not have the budget for having live musicians, sometimes using a track is the way to go. If you only have a budget for like piano and drums, and you're trying to do a show that's got trumpets and woodwinds and that type of thing, it's just not going to sound as good. But having the live band, I mean, just the sound of the live band as it resonates through the house. I've been at some theaters, and I'm not faulting them, but they try and isolate the band like in a back room and make the sound come completely through the miking equipment. So you're not actually hearing anything live.
And you don't get the percussive beat of the drum kit that you feel in your soul. You feel it in your body.
Exactly.
You feel that.
Exactly. And I know that when we've been at the rink or at the Kravis, you can really feel the presence of the band there. I went to college in Michigan. I actually got my degree in computer science.
Oh.
And I had always done music. I studied classical piano for 12 years growing up, and a lot of people just sort of assumed that I would go into that as a profession, but I didn't want to because I didn't want to practice. And I also said I never wanted to be in a position where I felt like I was forced to play piano or forced to do music. It's something I love to do, and I didn't want to have to be forced to do it as a job. So, and I love computers just as much, if not more. And so I got my degree in computer science, and actually worked in corporate America. I worked for a company called Electronic Data Systems, EDS. General Motors was our main client. It was later bought by Hewlett Packard, so I worked for them for a few years. I got to travel to China and in India and Europe on different consulting assignments, and that was my career for 14 years. And then and I always did a little bit of, I would do like music stuff, like a company chorus or company singers, maybe do a community theater show every now and again. But obviously with a full-time job, it was hard to do very much of that. And in 2008, I got laid off along with about 30,000 other people around the world. Wow. And actually both my parents had just passed away that same year. So there was a lot going on in 2008 for me. And so I kind of just took a year off to kind of regroup. Yeah, I did that. And then just got involved. I don't remember what the first show I did then was. And you do one show and then someone else hears about you or sees the show and says, hey, you're able to do something else. And bim boom bam, within like 3 years, I was basically music directing and doing music full time.
So Florida was just kind of let me change my life trajectory.
Well, Florida, actually, my parents retired to Florida,
okay,
so they retired from Michigan to Boca Raton while I was in college, and so I actually kind of followed them down after college for a computer job. So I was doing computer work down here.
And now you're full-time
directing. Music directing and accompanying.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I talk a lot about carpenters and the toll that the industry takes on their bodies, but what Paul Reekie and piano players go through, I was working on a show with Paul at Arts Garage called The Longing and the Short of It, and there was no dialogue, and it was just It was just piano and singing, and I think we added a drum kit and a bass guitar. But this guy played for like 42 hours a week, and it was like his hands were cramping up. So
that was sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
But that was I was just thinking about that the other day. I mean, it was so much fun. Like literally, it was during Tech Week, I was dunking my arms in a bucket of ice water, because for a few minutes, just because the amount of work. I'd never played that many hours in a week after week, and I never want to again.
No. And how do you maintain? I deal with carpal tunnel syndrome. How do you maintain? I mean, a lot of people don't realize that those of us that make a living in the arts, we kind of own our own business, and medical expenses are astronomical for us. And are you able to get care for yourself as you age and those piano muscles start to tighten up?
I'll do some warm-up exercises and that type of thing. There was a time like that time during that show, where I got worried, but I've been okay. And the thing that a lot of people think piano playing is about strength, and it's actually about speed. So in other words, to get a louder note, you don't press it harder, you move your finger quicker. So it's about keeping that speed going, rather than actual strength.
Right. Okay, I got something fun for you now.
Yeah.
I went to Google, and I Googled the top piano pieces ever known. And this was from Classical FM in London. And they've got a list of...
I've played none of them, I'm sure.
I'm sure. I've only heard of a couple of them, so I want to give you like 30 seconds and see...
Oh, no.
See how many... I mean, even just the composers. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Top 16. Here's what it says. The piano is such a versatile instrument that naturally everyone wants to write for it. But today, we're getting down to the exceptional stuff. This is a list of the best pieces ever written for the piano. No questions asked.
Well, that's pretty subjective.
It is.
A little
Everyone
bit.
likes
It
something
is.
different.
Cliff, what do you think? Do you know any of the
Well,
piano?
I'm looking over your shoulder,
you're
so don't
cheating.
ask me.
Chopin
Yeah.
Polonaise on there, Rachmaninoff.
Yeah,
bunch of stuff, I'm sure.
Rachmaninoff, Piano
Prokofiev.
Concerto No. 2 in C
Right.
minor.
Several
They
concertos.
gave music such crap titles back then. If it would have been like Rebecca's Opium Nightmare, everybody would be like, "Oh, you know Rebecca's Opium Nightmare from Rachmaninoff?" No.
Well, some of the Moonlight Sonata.
Yeah,
There you go.
They do give
Beethoven.
names to some of those pieces.
Yeah, Claire de Lune.
Yes,
Debussy.
Debussy. Yeah,
Nocturne in E flat major.
Chopin.
Okay. Piano trio. Rebecca
be anything.
Clark. Scenes from Childhood.
Oh.
Schumann.
Ah, yes.
You got the well-tempered clavier. Clavier.
Yeah.
Johann Sebastian and Goldberg Variations.
Yes.
There's a play called Goldberg Variations, weren't there? Who?
I think it's
Stuart Meltzer wrote a Goldberg.
Yes.
I didn't see that. Did you see that?
What is the hardest musical that you've ever had to
Garbage
perform?
Truck the musical is probably the hardest one. We got a garbage truck going through the studio right now.
What is the hardest musical?
Should we wait for the garbage truck and get
Let's
that
wait.
cleaned?
Let's
Let's
get
pause.
water.
I'm gonna go
Yeah,
let's pause.
get some water.
I don't know that there's one that's the hardest. I think a lot of them come with their own challenges for different reasons. I mean, some of them are just like The Longing of the Short and the Short of It, or even The Trouble with Doug. So, something where, well, in both cases, the composer was actually working with us during the rehearsal process. So having the composer there is certainly an honor and a treat, but there's a level of perfection that I feel I need to get to really do the work enough justice when the composer is there. So I think those have been not necessarily hard or stressful, but I really had to work very hard at every moment.
Do you find that you're trying to present their show at this point rather than your show?
When the composer was there?
Yeah, because you put your stamp on every show you do.
Right.
It's different because you're a living human. You're an artist.
Right.
So when you have the pressure of, or does that happen from the director's chair? What is that dynamic like? How often do you get your way? Pleads the fifth. This is the pleads the fifth he was talking about earlier. We'll cut
in the cases where the composer was there, both of those people are like really stand up guys, and they both specifically said, like, you know, you are working on our work, but we want you to also make it yours. So it was a true collaboration. They were really great about that.
How about a dream show? Do you have a list of 5 shows that you absolutely want to participate in?
Let me turn that question around a little bit and just talk about like my favorite shows. I'm the dumb audience member. Like I actually prefer working on shows and being in them than actually seeing them. I mean, I still get out to theater and that type of thing, but like I like theater. I like the fun, happy, big, traditional theater shows. So things not necessarily older, but like Legally Blonde or Will Rogers Follies. Those just kind of big. I just saw Crazy for You at the Wick. It's, you know, where it's lots of dancing and you know, good music. Those are the shows I love.
Something that you can get lost in.
Yeah. Sometimes the really cerebral shows, I feel like I'm not smart enough sometimes to really comprehend all of that. So yeah,
which goes back to a lot of what Marcy wants to do with MNM. She wants to do those shows that just wash over you and make you feel good.
Right.
And those are now more than ever super important. I mean, why do we really need to think about people's problems on stage?
We got around.
I'm excited. I think I'd be thrilled if Maltz did Follies. I can't get that out of my head. We were talking to Bruce about shows, and we talked about Follies, and I just thought, man, I've never seen Follies ever since I read about it in school. It's a huge, the pictures, and we talked about they're the only ones that can do it. So.
Right, and that's, you know, there's probably a lot of shows that I would love to see M&M specifically do, but obviously we're, you know, being at the Rinker right now, that stage is smaller. There's no wing space. There's a limited number of shows that we can do, at least in its current configuration. So that's always a challenge when M&M is trying to, you know, pick shows for the season, as you know, that we have to pick shows that people want to see that will fit on that stage. The shows usually are written for anywhere between 12 and 20 instruments. We can neither afford to have that many instruments nor fit them in the theater at all. So it's very traditional for most theaters to reduce that down. So I think for Mancha we have 7 players, and for Forum we have 6. So part of my job as a music director ahead of time is I have to take all that music and condense it down into the number of players that we have. And that's not as simple as being like, oh, here's a trombone part, I'm just going to throw it out, because there could be important music in that. So I have to basically sometimes take some of those notes and assign them to other players.
Yeah, the trombone carries the melody for 6 bars, and you can't lose that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's pretty standard for me to spend a bunch of time in advance of shows rearranging, so to speak.
You got to enjoy that, though. It's like kind of like your own little DJ.
I actually love doing that.
I think that's the art in it. You know, the skill to just play the piano and coach the actors, but the art of putting together the pit. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that you condense something that was written for a $5 million budget show, and the quality that M&M puts on stage for that good price is in due large part to Paul's efforts, to all the designers, to all the people that are making it work in that space, and it's a cool challenge. I think
I love arranging music in general. I've never been a composer. Every time I tried to compose something, I just end up playing what someone else has written. It just turns into that. So, but rearranging, reorchestrating parts is a lot of fun. And then, of course, the first day that we actually have the band there is just my favorite day.
Yeah. during auditions, I heard a lot of people sing "Happy Birthday."
Right.
What in the heck is that all about?
Okay. Happy Birthday is a song that everyone seems to know.
Sure.
I haven't heard anyone not know it yet.
What is this?
So when actors come in for an audition, they typically bring in two pieces with them, or 1 minute of a 1 minute cut from two different pieces, and sometimes we ask them to sing something else in a different style. If we want to hear them sing something comedic, and the pieces they brought in are not comedic. Sometimes they have them in their book and they can do that, and sometimes they can't, or they don't have it with them. So Happy Birthday is kind of my go-to when I want to hear someone sing something in a certain style. I'll ask them to sing it a certain way, or I can also just change keys really easily, and so I can test their vocal range, which is usually why I have them sing that. Yeah, so that's why you heard it so many times.
Okay. I kind of thought that was the key, but then I thought, wait, is Bruce giving them direction to like, okay, now sing Happy Birthday to Marcy like you're a school teacher?
That's been done before sometimes.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Those who have sung Happy Birthday at the auditions, do they have a lesser chance of getting cast?
Oh, is that like the mark
Is that
of
like yeah.
Oh man, you hear them coming out of the audition going, "Oh, they had me sing Happy Birthday." They hate me.
Is that a bad sign or a good sign?
I haven't gone through and actually done the statistics on whether those people are more likely or less likely to get a part. I think probably less likely, honestly, just simply because most of the actors that are better prepared will have other music with them. So.
I asked Bruce this question at auditions. Is there ever a point in any audition that you can remember that you thought you were like on a hidden camera show, like they'd set somebody up to come in and make
punked.
a fool, get punked, you know?
There have been some characters that have come into auditions over the past, not just here at MNM, but anywhere, yes, I mean there have been. I was doing auditions a lot. Actually, this was in college. That we were doing cabaret, and I was the accompanist for the auditions, and a woman came in, and she said, "I'm going to sing cabaret." And I said, okay, well, we have two different versions of it. And I said, do you have your music? She goes, I don't have music. I said, well, people have been singing it in two different keys. Do you want it in this key or this key? And she said, oh, I thought I would just start singing and you would play it in whatever key I started singing it in. That was a pretty tame example, but or people who come in and they don't have music at all, and they just expect me to play whatever song they decide they want to sing. Like, oh, just play this Frank Sinatra song or whatever. And, I mean, so usually we send them on their way.
Yeah, but that kind of lightens the mood for a minute, right? Because like all the ones that go on American Idol, like they're fake, right? The plants that are like really bad, those are actors putting on a shtick.
You never know.
So maybe we should start pranking auditions. Just go in and
let's waste everybody's
we
time.
We don't have time. We had 2 days of auditions that we had to make 3 days, and but this is the challenge also with. I mean, MNM is a professional theater company, but obviously we're on a guest artist equity contract, which means we're only allowed to hire a limited number of union actors. So, other theaters that have lots of union contracts, they're going to have more equity people auditioning. They have more experience. But having so many people come into auditions that are not part of the union, many are talented, many are professional, but then you also get some people that come in and think, oh, I did a play when I was in middle school, and wouldn't it be cool to be in one again, type of thing. And so, we try to be respectful and listen to their audition
and book them at the Tuesday night adults acting class for $25 an hour, right? I mean, those people do serve a purpose, but I always think that, the nerves that people go in, everybody would come out, and as soon as they hit that curtain, they went,
yeah.
And I was like,
even seasoned actors, and even some of the best
nerves
down
are
here
real.
in South Florida, after doing it for 40 years, they still get nervous and beat themselves up when they get on the other side.
It's incredibly personal to put yourself out there, and thank you for doing this, because I know you're a predominantly behind the scenes guy, but nerves are good. Nerves remind you that you're alive.
That's right.
And in the end, we're just trying to have fun and kind of show off behind the scenes to what MNM is doing, because people don't know that our budget restricts us to the number of equity contracts. And equity doesn't necessarily make it better. I would just say it makes it like a richer. You know, it's like a slow cooked meal rather than a quick meal. Like Taco Bell's good, but if you spend all day making carnitas at home, those tacos are going to be way better.
It's also direct proof that someone has been working in the industry for a long time. People can work in the industry without an equity card, certainly for a long time, but usually you don't get your equity card after doing just one show. You know?
Right.
So do you want to break the news right now who the big equity star in one of the 2 shows are? Do you know? I don't know any of the casting. Are you allowed to do that yet?
I'm not.
Okay. We have a gag order. All of this has to be sent
we
through
have a publicity
publicity
department that handles all of it. We do, in fact.
We do, yeah. Checks and balances.
Yeah, exactly. We're small, but we still have departments.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
probably check back in with him during the process.
Great.
So stay tuned for more.
Good to talk to you. Thanks.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Beta blockers, 10 milligrams. Beta blocker ad. You should eat beta blockers before you go on stage, y'all. Right, Matt Corey? Hey, thanks for listening to the MNM Theatre Company Podcast. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff.
Make sure to share if you like, and if you don't like, share.
Share it with your friends, and maybe we'll have you on the show one day soon.
Yeah, it could be you.
It could be you right here on the M&M Theatre Company Podcast.
Wow.